All right. Hello, it's Dr. Neesa, and I'm here with my friend and colleague, Shelley Lynn Hines. And Shelley is actively working on a book right now called The Star of Magdalene. And I took interest in that because of my own personal journey with resurrecting the consciousness of Mary Magdalene that has really been sweeping the world in a huge way over the last, 15, 20 years. Even the Catholic Church got on board and decided to canonize her as a saint, which is, really unbelievable given the history of her place in this church. So anyway, Shelley and I are coordinating together, collaborating on an event on the 22nd of this month, the feast day of Mary Magdalene. I'm just kind of a background support, but ultimately Shelley has some really groundbreaking information, and thus the book Star of Magdalene. And as an astrologer, I know, Shelley, you have discovered some really unique things regarding the Magdalene. And so let's just get into it. You can share here a bit about that. And if you want to address your background, feel free. I think I would like at some point to just talk to you about how this all came to be,
Okay.
your own awakening into the divine feminine forces that are so clearly alive
Hmm.
these days.
Thank you so much for this opportunity. And I'm going to do a slight correction. You are not just the background, you are the womb ground. You're going
Okay.
to. So we'll be having a gentle womb activation, which I've experienced with Neesa, and it's wonderful. So that's something to look forward to. Um, so you want my background or?
I'd love to let's just dive right into what is the premise of this book and
Okay.
what have you discovered that is so groundbreaking in the realm of astrology, interfacing with the divine feminine and Mary Magdalene specifically?
All right. Jump in any time. I was born into a family that did not go to church. There was a Bible on my mother's reading table, but she never took us to church. And so, but in my soul, and I do believe in reincarnation, I believe I've reincarnated many times to represent the feminine divine and to uphold Christ teachings, unadulterated Christ teachings. And so I was fortunate not to have the church in my life this time. And so I'm on the periphery, and I do kind of keep my finger on the pulse of those things Catholic because I come from that, and my ancestors come from that. And I heard in 2016 Pope Francis raise Mary Magdalene up to a feast status, and I went, wonder what that means. So I had to do some research, and because I didn't know what a feast day was, and it was great. Other cultures, Southern France and Orthodox, they have always kept Mary Magdalene in high esteem and did not follow with the Catholic Church leaning of prostitution and those negative stories and personalities. But so I'm doing the research, and I was already reading the Gospel of Mary, which is amazing. It's one that didn't get put into the canon. If you're not familiar, there's a whole bunch of books and ancient texts that were buried in the sand in Egypt and in Israel. And so they have made their way through to the surface. And I had been reading the Gospel of Mary because it is beautifully written. And so I said, okay, what's a feast day? And I'm looking it up, and I talked to my church leader, my spiritual leader, who had a small New Thought church at the time. And I said, I want to talk about Mary Magdalene. And he said, okay. And so uh, I started doing research, and what am I do? And I got all these past life negative visions of how women, and myself included, have been silenced and killed and throat slit and burnt at the stake, and all of those witch wound kind of things came bubbling up. And public speaking is not easy for me. because of that, and as I'm eldering, I'm becoming more and more comfortable with my authentic voice. And that the message that comes to me is that this is a lifetime that we are safe to have our voices again. And so this is what I'm teaching in my own courses. But so I was having like a panic attack, and I closed my computer down and I did some breathing and I got centered. And as I got centered, I heard a voice come in, and it told me to look up the asteroid Magdalena. Now it was precise. It wasn't look up the asteroid Mary or Mother Mary or Magdalene. It was Magdalena, and I'd never heard of that before. So I opened up my computer again and started doing a whole lot more research. And I didn't discover the planet. I came across somebody else's work. There was a French gentleman who was an astronomer, and he discovered and named this asteroid Magdalena in the late 1800s. And so it took me a while, and I to get it into my computer so that I could look it up on a software. And sure enough, there it was. And her star, I call it a star. You know, we look up in the sky and we go, look at all those stars. Well, some of them are planets and some of them are, different bodies, but we call them stars. And Hollywood has their stars. It's anything that's shiny and bright. And so, whilst she's not a true star, she's an asteroid, I refer to her lovingly as a star. So, my book is named after her, The Star of Magdalene, and it's about this asteroid, Magdalena. And so I started doing research to see where she was in my chart in the collective. And I've been collecting and doing research on events and other like authors' charts. Our dear Margaret Starbird, who wrote The Woman with the Alabaster Jar, as she was publishing her book, the asteroid Magdalena was going through the house of publishing in her ninth house. And so this is what just turns me on, and I get super excited about the validations. And then when I do a woman's chart or a gentleman's chart, um, it's validation for them, and it's wonderful to share the excitement that people have. I go, oh, I knew it, or oh, now I get it. They get the aha moments.
Right, which is characteristic of astrology in general, right? But
If
I'm wondering if you can contextualize this a little bit more so people who don't know about this, that I think what you've shared with me is that you're able to find where this asteroid called Magdalena sits in individual birth charts.
correct, and in transit because it's constantly moving too.
Oh, and in transit. Yeah. So tell us a little bit about what does that mean? Like, how does that translate for a person?
Can I use you as an example?
You may.
All right. Currently, we'll just use you. So the 10th house is the house in evolutionary astrology. I don't do prediction. I love just the validation and the comfort that we get to know that this is a cycle, and we're going through a cycle, and it's going to change, and it might come around again, like the moon comes around every month, right? The sun every year, it takes a year. And Magdalena takes 5 years to go around the wheel, plus or minus a little bit. And so to contextualize it as an example, I gave one, Margaret Starbird, her house of publishing. Everybody has a ninth house. Not everybody's going to publish, right? It's not just publishing, but for her book about the woman with the alabaster jar happened when this planet asteroid was transiting in her own personal place. For you, everybody has a 10th house, and the 10th house is traditionally, it was called the career house, and I like to call it the house of mission. I was taught that, and it feels better because a woman who's a stay-at-home mom, her mission is to be the best mom, right? But it's not, quote, a career like we're used to thinking of it. So my 10th house, I have Mars. In your 10th house, you happen to have Mars, and Mars is our drive and what gets us going, and where we're learning courage. Okay. And so for you, Neesa, you have a Mars in Cancer in the 10th house. So you're learning to be the soft feminine warrior kind of courage that you are developing in the public. You wear the hat, you're known for these courses that you give and the downloads that you're sharing, right? So that's the hat that you wear. Mine is in my Mars is in the 10th house, and I'm known to get my courage in it's in Aquarius. So it's kind of like I challenge the authorities, and I'll be an authority that challenges others. And that's sort of the trigger words, one of them for the Aquarian signature, which is Magdalena, the asteroids. Her signature that she was discovered in was in the sign of Aquarius. So she is like breaking through. And what she's known for is being a messenger. From the research
Mm.
done, her classic, she's a message bearer. And the symbol for her is a dove. And
Right.
there's a thing called Sabian symbols, which
Yeah.
runs hand in hand with astrology in some circles. Not everybody uses Sabian symbols, but hers is a dove. The asteroid itself on discovery date in Aquarius was a dove being a messenger bearer. And that's got a significant um, the storyline in the Bible about the dove showing up when John the Baptist baptized Yeshua. There was a dove that appeared, and dove is wisdom, right? So,
Yeah.
so I got very excited about that. So you're um, currently where your Mars is, Magdalene is in transit, okay? And so in transit, Magdalene is amplifying today, actually, your Mars, and you're going to be known for this Magdalene presentation. And this is how it's working in you. For you, by natally, though, you have, I'm trying to remember your chart because I looked at it just before we signed on. Your natal Magdalene is in the fifth house of art and creativity, and so another signature for Aquarian things are futuristic, and boy, are your symbols that come through rather interdimensional, sort of a futuristic kind of a way. But if there's no time, in the big picture, everything's happening at the same time. So I'm going to put that caveat in there. You've done this in the past, you've done it in the future, you're doing it now, and it's all happening together, and it's really exciting to me to pull all the cards.
Yeah, it's so
Yeah,
cool.
does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. And I'd like to expound on that a little bit more for general understanding for other people and possibilities. But I will just comment that you and I met in a women's community. And when you started talking about this, I was just like, what?
Yeah.
Like, it was very activating for my curiosity. And so to hear about these divine feminine frequencies, coming through this symbology, if you will, of Mary
Yes.
Magdalene is it's very telling, for me personally. And it's like, okay, yes, it's affirmation, and yes, it helps me understand why I've been kind of pushed to this work.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily an easy path. I will certainly admit
Oh, and
that.
the sweetest thing is the affirmations or the validations that come to us with these frequencies. So I told you when I got the download to look up this asteroid Magdalena, and I wasn't using asteroids very much at all at that time. The next thing that came down that was a validation for my heart and my soul was this is why. And I know that this is why I'm doing this. This is a divine assignment. I've been following since the 80s, the path of the feminine divine. And it's just like in 2016, I finally figured out why it was important to me. And so this is why I'm working with evolutionary astrology and writing this book. And it's just men have this too. It's not just that men, we know that men have a feminine part and we have a masculine part. And one of the most fascinating charts that I looked at recently when I was doing research was Harvey Weinstein. Has a very, very, very strong Magdalene, and he made a movie called The Magdalene. And while he was in so much trouble, I think he had to sell it to somebody else because I remember waiting for it to come out, and it got postponed because he was in court. And so there was a delay. But but his chart is full of Magdalene energy, just immense, strong Magdalene energy that he was to be a communicator for, to be a message bearer for. And so he was,
Yeah, that's a rabbit hole. I don't think I want to go down, if these things
right?
you said
Right?
about him, how he was treating women, but
Yeah.
well,
So there's a
yeah,
dark side and a light side to all of the signs. To the sun, there's an eclipse, there's a dark, there's a night. Everything has, we have to have a balanced look at. We just can't have flight into light, right? We have to have some grounding and understand. Even Yeshua was in his human body and had some dark demonstrations.
yeah,
To the tables was one.
yeah. Well, that can also be construed as the empowered feminine force too. I mean,
Absolutely,
that is
absolutely.
laying down the law and,
Yep.
really setting clear boundaries is
Yeah.
really highly important. So the feminine is not just all about receptivity and love and light.
Yeah, there's a strong, I think I can see Magdalene and Kali holding hands, mirroring each other, you know. So
Hmm,
there's some power because even the Kali story has been changed through the patriarchy. So
right. Well, let's just back up a little bit to this concept that I think can be really relevant for a lot of people, like
you,
knowing where this planetary body, this asteroid called the Magdalena, fits in your chart. Like clearly it's going to be in everybody's chart. And so how can that just be helpful for a person to maybe a couple other examples, like how that is
okay.
empowering if they choose to go that way?
Yeah, that's the thing. Number one, we have free will in evolution, well, in all astrology, we should be teaching you have free will. And for me, the chart is just a map of potential, and potential doesn't exist. So you got to use your free will and make your decision what you want to manifest. So if I was looking at a different asteroid like Chiron, the wounded healer, there are people who have never heard about it. But are they manifesting some sort of healing potential? Some are, some aren't. Sometimes the chart doesn't tell you anything compared to what the person is living. And the other example I would give of potential for a sign or a chart is Hitler and um, Charlie Chaplin have very similar charts. Somebody who, so talk about the light and the dark of almost a very, very similar chart. Okay. So when it comes to the Magdalena asteroid, if you're in alignment and curious and seeking, it's going to mean something to you. And if you are unaware of the Magdalene, or you still are under the false pretense of the prostitution story, then you might have a different view of it and need some re-education. But um, so, do you want another chart example of?
Sure. And then there's a couple of questions that are coming behind it. So go ahead.
Okay, good. So, for someone who's in alignment with um, women's issues would be another thing. May not know anything about it. Tarana Burke is a name that I found in my research, and she was the one who coined the Me Too movement. She was the first one to coin Me Too. And
Wow.
she's got Magdalene right on her sun, and it's in the 10th house. Like she is going to be known for women's issues and strong voice and leadership. So that's, I'd love to have a cup of tea with her. And right now, right now she's still operating women's or girls gender affirming care in some way. I believe is what I read. So that's another one. Mine, for me, the reason why when I heard this is why I'm doing this is she's in my first house. She's the first object in my first house. And in astrology, you have 12 houses that start with Aries and go to Pisces, and Aries signature keywords are I am, and it's a strong masculine house signature, and it is um, ruled by Mars, and so it's what you want to initiate. It's also how you see the world and how the world sees you, like through a mask or a stained glass window sort of effect. So for me, having Magdalene right there, number one, numero uno, in the first house of I am, the keyword I am, I'm not saying I am Magdalene any more than you're Magdalene. We're all connected. And so, but that part of me wants to be first. It wants to be in the first house. It wants to be known. It will be known for that signature. Um, if it was in my home house, then I might have a temple, or each house would come with a different flavor and a different expression of what the Magdalene and which sign. Okay, so my Magdalene um, is in Taurus. So yeah, but
Uh-huh.
if she was in Gemini, it'd be a different thing. If she was in Cancer, it would have another way to explain and enhance the stories that would show up in someone's consciousness.
Yeah. Well, this came to you at a particular point in history, and myself, I'm one of many women across the globe who have become impassioned about the
Yes.
resurrection of the divine feminine as a force for planetary healing. So I'm just curious about your take on why now? Like, why is there such a thing about Magdalene that it even came through the Catholic Church?
Well, personally, I'll tell you a little bit about my chart. So she transits it takes 5 years for her to go around. And when the sun hits your Venus, it's going to be amplified. When the moon hits a certain point on your chart, it's going to have light shown on it. But when the transiting asteroid Magdalena was on my north node, which is your compass in astrology. The north node is what you've come here to do. She was hitting my north node right at that time. So for me, this is why it was time. She'd done that every 5 years, but the culmination of so many things have happened. So that's the global consciousness that we're seeing. I mean, even men, while they may not be acting out their words, at least they're starting to say, I think it was the Dalai Lama, the Western woman will save the world, right? And
Right.
and Pope Francis raised her up to feast status and said and reminded us she was the apostle. Magdalene was the apostle to the apostles. Christ came to her. He didn't come to Peter. He didn't come to the boys. He came to his beloved. And so we're seeing Magdalene stories everywhere,
Yeah.
everywhere. I mean, if you haven't Googled Magdalene, Mary Magdalene, make a cup of coffee, sit down and enjoy yourself, because there's a lot to research, and so we're retelling stories. That's for me part of the important part of this time, is that women are getting their voice. Don't pay attention to all the negative news reels, because if we stay out of fear and just move in light and love, that those stories are going to dissolve and devolve, and women will get our rights back, and then more. We will get back to where we were, and then more. I believe.
Yeah, agreed. And one of the reasons that I do what I do is because I've discovered through esoteric practices, through breath work, through, transformational realities, that women get their power really ultimately in the womb space. And it's an arena that,
Yeah.
has been violated, to say the least, right, over thousands of years. And so that's happening, this awakening energy experience. And then we've got, things like Magdalene, poof, on the world stage in such a big way, in ways that has never happened before. So you are one of many people who has been called to speak about Magdalene specifically and what she represents. So you talked about the alabaster jar, so she was known as a healing priestess, giving anointments and potentially midwifing and
Yep.
doing hands-on healing.
And
And the lover of Christ, that is.
absolutely, the queen to the king. And in ancient Isis tradition, it was the queen who called the king and anointed him and said, "You're the one." It
Mm,
wasn't the other way. And
yeah,
so that
that gave
was,
me a chill.
I
Yeah.
know, me too. But what's really cool is, like I said about the consciousness, it's rising and it's going to be rising in different ways. That's why I want to tell stories and retell stories and maybe reframe stories that give the woman the voice and the power and the respect, You see some of these younger women out there, they may know nothing about Mary Magdalene or the feminine voice or anything, but they're not going to take this. They're saying, no, I'm not going to have children, or if I have children, I'm not staying home. I'm going to be doing this differently. And that's what I want to write about and hold space for, is it has to be done differently. And it's going to make people uncomfortable and frighten people. Yeah.
Yeah, well, it may be that people will make choices like that, and it may be that actually brings women back home to their families. Like, there's all kinds of possibilities here.
That's another that is happening as well. Yeah, I
Yeah.
have some business mentors. They both have young children at older ages. Okay, and so, but fortunately they have the support that they can go out, and they do a lot of stuff online. They have a booming business online. So we're seeing different ways of women holding power and authority.
But ultimately, in my opinion, it's about an authentic power that comes from internal connection. It's not just about trying to keep up with men and stepping into a masculine design of society, which you see with, say a lot of women CEOs, women
Yep,
politicians, like they're not really moving from the feminine, although they are in female bodies.
I agree, and I've been to work with them, but mm, yeah, you just said something about how we're relating and correlating. It'll come back to me. It popped in, but it flittered away.
Yeah, no worries. So I guess what's on my mind right now, I think first of all, people need to decide on their own, like what does Magdalene represent to them? She was a living woman. Uh,
Yeah,
by some, estimates, she could be considered an ascended master. But the energies and the frequencies that she represents is this very strong, empowered feminine force.
I remember. Thank you. You brought me back to what I was
Yeah.
thinking. And so this internal, it is an internal, it's an inside job. Okay, you can't get it out there, and that is exactly what I believe Yeshua and Miriam both were teaching, was the kingdom is within, and
Yeah.
that's where you go. Okay, you go inside, and many teachings have the heart being the seat of the soul. I can dig that, but if Magdalene and uh, the Christ, Yeshua, were partnered, and I do believe they were. I think we're not allowed to know that truth. They didn't want us to know how powerful they both were, let alone he left the keys to her. He left the secrets to her. And this cleansing of the seven demons, that's been mistranslated. Demons is daemon in Latin, and it just means light. And so these chakra lights were just cleaned up. He gave her a healing so she could go and do her work.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And so all of this is happening at the same time in history when, there's just been a lot more awareness of chakras and energy and more
Mhm.
people considering that a normal part of their understanding of what it is to be in a human body, right? It wasn't like that, I'm telling you, when I started my path. as a chiropractor 30 years ago, I would talk about energy, and clients were like, what? Like, it
Uh,
was just a completely unknown territory, and now it's relatively normal,
yeah.
as we're awakening to these forces.
So that's another thing I could talk about, the awakening and the becoming conscious. When Pluto was discovered, we didn't know anything about psychology, but when it was discovered was when Freud was bringing out his work on the subconscious, right? So as soon as this planet was discovered, now it's on Earth's consciousness, and he started building his body of work on the unconscious. And Pluto in astrology rules the unconscious. When Magdalene was discovered in the late 1800s by this gentleman, shortly afterwards, the gospel was unearthed. The Gospel of Mary was unearthed.
Oh my
But
gosh, that
yeah,
was going to be my next question. I mean, like, what was going on then
that's right.
astrologically?
And
Yes.
like my favorite song, I just loved Anne Murray growing up. We had a lot of country singers in my house with my parents in charge of the radio. But Anne Murray was one that I loved, and she sang this song called In the Garden. And I didn't know, not being church, that it was a song written about Mary and the resurrection. And he comes to me and he spoke to me and he called me by name, and it's this beautiful song. Look it up. It's called In the Garden. But the person who wrote and penned that, again, shortly after the discovery of the asteroid, Mary Magdalene, it was in the early 1900s that this gentleman who was quite Aquarian, if I remember his chart right, he was an Aquarius. So the Magdalene star is in the Aquarius constellation. It's in that sign. So that's where I look at
Oh,
people's charts to see, okay, where is it where is your Magdalene by birth? Where is it by transit? But where are the sensitive points? So a sensitive point would be the discovery point, which is 19 degrees and 19 minutes of Aquarius, is the discovery point of the Magdalene asteroid. So,
oh, fantastic.
so then you look at the charts for sensitive points for
Yeah.
things like that.
Did you ever learn what was going on for that gentleman whose name I don't know, who discovered this asteroid and why he called it Magdalena? Like what?
Because he was living in the south of France, where
Oh, he was in the south of
he
France.
lived.
Okay.
It was discovered in Nice, France. Yes,
Ah,
and his name is, I can't believe I'm not remembering right now, but I think he might have been murdered. I think
oh,
he had a young death, a violent death, or there was something in his family. But yeah, he discovered a lot, but that is the one that he called Magdalena for whatever reason.
okay.
Yeah,
Okay. Wow. That's also fascinating. Yeah. Just
yeah, yeah, yeah.
the timing, it just really, kind of reinforces the
It's,
sense
it's
that
like
there
she
is
landed.
like perfection in this whole design, even though it
There,
doesn't always seem
yeah,
that way.
yeah. It's like they left the Holy Land after the crucifixion, and they landed in the south of France,
Right.
only to have her star discovered from the south of France too. I mean, you can't make this stuff up, right?
It's so poetic and beautiful.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
is. It is. I get tears in my eyes when I talk about it still.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I love it. Great. Okay, so you have this book you're putting together, and on the feast day of Mary Magdalene this week, you're going to be offering a free presentation,
Yes.
and I will be participating in that as well, doing a short womb connecting exercise for the participants, and that can be through a man's body as well. So.
Thank you for saying that. Yes.
Yes, yes,
Yes.
yes, yes. Yeah.
Because
There's many ways to do
we all
that.
have that chakra, whether we have a womb or other parts.
Right, and that is how we connect to
Yeah.
the deep feminine, whether
Yeah.
no matter what body we have.
Correct.
So that said, do you want, I know you're planning to give some kind of a presentation. Maybe you can just give a short little overview.
Yeah, I have a
Why?
I have a slide presentation, and I'll be showing, maps and points, and I want to try to keep it less astrology because that's such a deep rabbit hole to go down. So I'm just going to give snippets of like much like what we just spoke of, but then have some celebrity charts, a couple of those, and definitely time for questions and answers.
Yeah. Okay. Well, this is great. So just tapping into this field of information, you're tapping into the frequencies that Magdalene carries and represents, and that's activating and awakening for all of us in whatever way we are ready to receive
Yeah,
that, whether it's more on the intellectual level or the feeling level or the embodied level, it's all
they're all
beautiful.
connected. Yeah, they're all connected.
Yeah. So anything else that you would like to share in closing?
Just gratitude for you for this moment and sharing your space and helping put this energy out into the collective consciousness, not the collective unconscious. We're bringing this up all in full technicolor, man. And everybody has a different approach, you know? So I thank you.
Yeah, the other thing that I did not mention so far is that, yeah, the weekend after the 22nd, I'm hosting an online painting experience where we'll dip into the Magdalene energy again and render an image that carries her frequencies. Both you and I are certified teachers in intentional creativity, and it's such a beautiful practice to
Really.
bring energy of the formless through into physical with paint. Even
Yeah.
if you don't have experience with that,
Well,
it's
we are here to bring spirit into matter. That's what Earth is about. Bring
yes.
spirit into matter. And that's
Yeah,
what I think that intentional creativity is the biggest gift to me in my life to do that.
same.
Yeah.
Thank you, Shiloh Sophia, our
Yes.
teacher. Yeah,
Yes. And
yeah.
at all.
That's all. Exactly. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you, Shelley. And I hope some of you may want to follow up and get on board with these upcoming events this week. I will put some links in the
Yeah, and I'm
description.
at shelleyhines.com. That's my easy, and my name is spelled there correctly. So that's how you can reach me. Just do a .com and find me.
Great. Excellent. All right. All right. Signing off. Thank you.